This is teaching a clinical modality through a decolonized lens. I'm teaching IFS, and I'm Max Karpinski. So what is IFS? So IFS is inner work. We all have parts, and these are basically infinite. There are as many parts as you want, or as many parts that you want to engage. These parts are like an inner family, and they all have connections to each other. And it is our parts connection that we can find healing and growth and learn more about ourselves. Um, each one of these parts has a perspective, thought, and emotion. And we are looking to create this connection to understand what these perspectives have to offer us and what we can use from them and why they are there. Healing happens through the understanding of these connections. And one thing that I've heard in neuroscience is that we're not the our brain cells, we're the connections between them. And I think we all have that sort of like subjective point of interpretation where we are based on connection, we're connected beings. We are the subjective process of these connections, and that is what our state of being and perception is. And healing happens through these relationships and the understandings of them. And that comes down to like where these relationships come from, where these parts come from, um, and why they are there and how they make us who we are. So the overview of core concepts, it basically came from two theories. There's the plural mind, and then there's systems thinking. So the plural mind is the idea that we have many parts to a person's thinking. We are like a consolidation of all these parts. Each part or self has its own emotions, thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and that makes us who we are. These parts can be an inner child, a critic, a carer, a protector, and there really are unlimited parts. There can be like an angry part, a happy part, like a sassy part, a childlike part, a teenager, an adult self. These all make us who we are. And then there's the systems thinking, which humans are not just singular individuals to analyze, but broad, expansive connections. So these identify to the broader scope of everything. So it's all the systems that, in like an ecological and environmental sense, have an effect on us. And you can identify where these parts have come from through systems thinking. And you can often connect them to other people or um, bigger systems in the world, such as like in macro, like in politics, or um, just our previous experiences, our society. Um, and then systems thinking looks at how those systems interact, such as families, thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. So that's more like of the interplay between those systems. And these interactions can cause feedback loops. So it's looking at the interactions between these different parts and systems and how they bounce off of each other. So the history of the modality. IFS was developed in the 1980s by Richard Schwartz, PhD, who is a family therapist. He was a endocrinologist, which works with treating disorders of the endocrine system, which comprises glands such as the thyroid, adrenal glands, pituitary gland, and pancreas. So these glands regulate mood and hormones. And the way he got into this work was looking to treat and regulate mood. He was inspired by Fritz Perls' idea of having a person engaging in a dialogue. Um, So the inner dialogue would be the dialogue of all these parts and how they communicate to each other. And inspiration was taken from family therapy and systems therapy. Um, and it really kind of all comes back to Freud in the end, you know. Freud introduced the idea that treatment could be founded in the therapeutic relationship. Um, so that was in the 1800s, the first time, which really it was the idea of the relationship was what could be healing. Freud focused on the individual, but later introduced the family effects. So even though it did always was a person-centered approach, um, it did eventually include the family's effects on the individual. And then in the 1970s was really when family therapy and ecological theory was introduced. And that's when it was more about like the interplay and more of an ecological perspective of treating treating problems that people had. And IFS looks at every level of the human system. So as I was mentioning earlier, it's like zooming out in an ecological sense, where you can first start with looking at the different parts of the individual, but then you can go on to see how those different parts were affected by your life or by your surroundings or by our society, by your family, and you can make those links as to where you learnt these behaviors. Um, social justice values. So I separated it into the personal, which is no parts of a person are bad. They are all there for a reason, and they all make us who we are. And there is value in all of these parts. Integration of all parts that have been shamed or neglected. Those are really, in my experience, the parts which need to be explored the most. And those are the ones that we have really pushed aside, and that's what has largely led to our problems. All parts are given attention to be heard, listened to, and healed. I think there's a lot of empowerment and acceptance in looking at all our different parts and accepting them for what they are and who we are as people and why they are there and what they have done to lead us to where we are now. And then we take accountability for all our parts, healed or unhealed, where there's, again, acceptance in that. And I think it's really putting ourselves under a focused lens to unpack what these parts are there for and what parts could really need nurturing in ourselves. And I think a lot of this comes down to like self-love, and really loving and appreciating all the different parts of ourselves. And there's obviously a lot of healing in that. And then at a broader scope, IFS seeks to unpack discrimination, because I think we discriminate against ourselves when we're neglecting these parts of ourselves. And I think in a broader sense, you can also look at these different parts as to which parts of ourselves are holds discrimination towards others, and really seeing what those parts have to say and why they are there. And if we can seek to understand ourselves through a discriminatory lens and an anti-oppressive lens, then we can go to do that with other people. So it reflects on our own thoughts and beliefs. Again, we accept why we have these thoughts and beliefs, but we also challenge them. And we see if they are serving us or not, and how we could make them more helpful. IFS can unpack these systemic problems and biases, because when we're really putting it under that lens, that's when we can make the decision to see how it is affecting us and whether it is really serving us in the right way. And The organization, the governing body for IFS, um, that is the official training and certifying organization. They commit to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and they really hold these values in place as well through their training. And there is a strong commitment towards um, having equity and inclusion. So the ways that we can decolonize IFS is by centering non-Western worldviews, by seeking out indigenous beliefs or other points of view. And this is one, in a later slide, this is one of the critiques of IFS because, um, we live in a Western society, and a lot of these theories have been brought forward by white Western men in like the 70s and 80s. So it's coming from this point of view, and a lot of the time it's not bearing in mind other cultures and other experiences. And that's one of the challenges of the practitioner, is to, when they're using metaphors and when they're using language, is to really be inclusive and to have their own sense of humility to working with the client so that they can cater to the client in a way that is culturally appropriate to them. And in my experience, I would try and hold humility at that point, because it's an acceptance of your own lack of understanding of other people's experiences. And even though we can try to understand, we don't have that lived experience. So being very mindful of that the whole time. Bearing in mind historical and generational trauma will often come out in that, because there will be parts which will respond to that historical and generational trauma, and we have to hold space for that. So we can use cultural humility and appropriate language when being a practitioner, understanding your own identity and as a practitioner and how it relates to the client. That would come into not projecting as well your own thoughts and feelings about certain things, and trying to meet the client where they are. Seeking out DEI training methods when getting certified. So really trying to find training that will be open to other cultures and other experiences. Look to learn from other cultures and developing your own practice. That comes back to the own sense of humility and being open to other people's experiences and really trying to learn from that. Being flexible when it comes to structure, timing, ability is very important, because people are going to react differently to this type of therapy. And I think there should be a trauma-informed approach when it comes to that, and trying to create a safe space and making it comfortable, and trying to really focus on the relationship and trust when working with someone. And so being mindful of trust, consent, safety, context, and trauma should always be in the forefront of your mind. So the strengths, IFS is rated as effective in improving functioning by SAM HSA. So it does have a good foundation in functioning, which is basically, everything. It's effective in treating PTSD symptoms such as depression, dissociation, and dysregulation. It encourages acceptance through a strength-based approach, and it improves emotional management. So it does seem to be effective. And it really is one of the most popular modalities that I've seen recently. And then some of the critiques: there are fewer large-scale studies compared to other modalities, which I think it's getting more popular now, but from my understanding, it hasn't been popular for long enough to really see how it works. And it's expensive and demanding training, which a lot of training is these days, it seems. Um, there's concerns with using IFS to treat psychosis and schizophrenia, so it may not be a modality that is effective across the board for everyone, and there may be risks associated with that. And it might be difficult to find inclusive training with other cultures considering language and worldview. So again, like being very mindful of other people's experiences when being trained in IFS and practicing it seems to be very important. Now we're going to move on. We're going to do this ourselves. I'm going to orchestrate it to the best of my ability. And I'm also going to give a bit of my own experience with IFS. I've done it for over a year with my therapist. This was a year ago, so I will be going off of some of the things that I've learned. But I am a trauma survivor, so some of this may be triggering. I won't go into too much detail, but I will talk about some of the parts that came up for me and what it looked like in my experience. And I'd just like to really start with self-love. I think we should love all of our parts of ourselves and others to the best of our ability. I think love starts with us, and self-love really is the most important thing. One of the most effective things that I've done has been meditation. I think it's really probably the most important thing I've done in my life, and it helped me with my therapy in a huge way. I don't really know if I could have done the therapy that I have without having meditation really at the core of it. So I will start with a little meditation. We'll move into some self-love, and then we will go into trying to speak to some of our parts. So if I can invite you to sit comfortably, and really just try and relax yourself, and breathe in slowly and deeply, and then breathe out slow. So there are 3 different kinds of meditation, and this would be mindfulness. So we are just being mindful of our breath. So we are breathing in deep and out slow. And try and make it as slow as possible. If any thoughts come into your mind, just let them. They are a part of you. But try not to give them too much attention. And if you can, just come back to your breath. And breathe in deep and out slow. And if you can just not think for a second, there is no pressure. That is where you start. Breathe in deep and out slow. So then as you breathe in, say to yourself, I love myself. And as you breathe out, I let go. I love myself. I let go. Now as you breathe in, you can say, I am enough. As you breathe out, I let go. I am enough, and I let go. We will just sit here for a few seconds. So now we will move on. So as you are noticing your breath, you are noticing your body, you are filling yourself with love. Let yourself arrive in the moment with your feet on the floor, sitting in your chair. And just feel your body. So imagine you're in a room, and this could be any room. It's your room. It's a space within yourself that you can have any way you want. So look around the room, and just think to yourself, what is in the room? Maybe there is a table, maybe there are some chairs, maybe there are walls, maybe there aren't. Just picture yourself in this room. Is it lit? Is it dark? Are there candles? How does it feel to be there? Where are you in the room? Now as you are looking around the room, you can invite a part of you in there to be with you. And just notice this part of you in the room. Just witness them being there. You don't have to go searching. Just notice who and what is in the room. If a part of you emerges, notice where this part of you is in the room. What do they look like? How do they feel? How far away are they from you? Where are they in the room? Just observe. Now notice inside of you. How do you feel with this part in the room? Where do you feel it in your body? What is the feeling of this part? Is it happy? Is it sad? Is it calm? Is it angry? What is its energy and its feeling? So now if you would like, you can talk to this part. Ask the part, why are they here? What do they want to tell you? Do they have anything to say? Is there a reason that this part is here? Ask what the reason is. What do they want you to know? And just witness. Does this part have a job? Does it have something that should be doing or shouldn't? How do you feel about that part? How do you feel about its job or its purpose? If you feel safe in asking so, ask the part what they need from you. What would make this part feel better? What does it want? Just feel it inside yourself. As this part voices itself to you, feel the sense of calm come over you as you listen to it. Feel the sense of calm you have of making that connection. Really listening to them. Hopefully this brings some comfort that can just wash over you. So as we come to a close, say thank you to this part of you. Thank them for being there for you. Thank them for showing up. Let them know that you are there for them when the time is ready. and when you would like to again. As we move on, let them fade, and let the room fade, or wherever you are. If you would like to at this point, you can create a box. This could be a part of you, a part of your mind that you could put these parts into. And it's not just a box that we keep closed, it's a box that you can open anytime you want. Anytime you want to come back, you can open the box and you can see them again. If you prefer, you can picture a happy place that you know of, a calm place that you have in your mind that you can always go to. Picture what this calm place is and just take a walk through it. Now, as we come out of the room, you can reflect on what this meant to you. Reflect on what this part was, and what the room was, and what effect and what feelings and thoughts showed up in yourself. Maybe you would like to journal about it, or just keep it as a memory of something that you can come back to. Just in my experience, I'll share what my room is. It's actually from a video game. It's from Elden Ring, bizarrely enough, and it's this round table. It's kind of like medieval. It's like dark, dimly lit. And when I was doing my therapy, I had three main parts that came up. The first was me as a child, like a baby almost, like a toddler. And then there was me as a teenager. And then there was me as an adult. The baby was quite neglected. The young child just wanted to be held, wanted to be picked up. The teenager was angry, like a stereotypical angry teenager, but they were strong, and they were out there to protect me. And all these parts have a purpose, and you can feel them. I feel my child in my stomach. I feel my teenager in my chest. And ever since I did this, I can go back to these parts and I understand why they're there. And, I can understand their anger, and I can understand the baby was really far from me. I was neglecting my child, my inner child. And, I eventually picked them up, and I connected with these different parts. I learned to love the different parts of myself, and why they're there, and it did a lot for me. So I would recommend internal family systems to anyone, I think, especially with meditation and EMDR and CBT. You can use these all together and have really positive results if it works for you. But I'd like to thank you for sharing this experience with me, and it was a real pleasure. Thank you.